Christopher Gorham's Scott triggered a major jealousy flare-up for Georgie. That wasn't surprising, but the ease with which it was all resolved was another story. Of course, Georgie and Mandy's first marriage season 2 episode 5 was only setting the stage for things to come, exposing the biggest problem in Georgie and Mandy's relationship. It wasn't surprising that Georgie was uncomfortable. Georgie was all for Mandy going on an overnight trip to report on the meteor shower until he learned Scott was going too. I dislike these types of stories. I've always felt that if you can't trust that the person you're with is going to stay faithful, you don't belong in a relationship with them. Mandy was right too. Saying he didn't trust Scott meant he didn't trust her, because he didn't think she'd reject Scott's advances. Of course, that assumes anything that might happen is consensual, but Georgie and Mandy's first marriage season 2 wouldn't go there. Hopefully, anyway. In any case, Mandy made a mistake too by not mentioning that Scott would be going until Georgie asked. She wasn't trying to hide anything, but she knew Georgie would be upset, so she omitted that detail until she was pressed. Unfortunately, that blew up in her face, because it made it look like she was keeping Scott's involvement secret. Predictably, Georgie went ballistic and tried to control whether Mandy went, which was not a good idea and not something she would accept, nor should she. Yes, I know the show was set in the 1990s, not 2025, but women didn't need to accept that kind of treatment 30 years ago any more than they do now. Mandy has been working hard to get her career off the ground, and Georgie's behavior could have sabotaged it. I was expecting Scott to send someone else to cover the meteor. When he said he could make other arrangements, I figured that he'd send some random reporter, and Mandy would be furious that she lost the opportunity. That would have been a bit cliched, but it was a logical assumption after Georgie thought he fixed everything. Instead, Mandy's rage stemmed from learning that Georgie had spoken to Scott at all. I can't blame her for that. Georgie put his nose into her business and then acted all high and mighty, like he thought he was in charge of whether Mandy went or not. Still, it could have been a lot worse, and it says something for Scott that he didn't play that kind of trick. It would be great if Georgie really didn't have anything to worry about. One of the reasons I hate the trope of the new guy being jealous of the ex is that it almost always turns into a situation where he saw something his partner wasn't admitting to herself. It's never a matter of someone being insecure for no reason. These stories usually end up with the ex and the partner cheating together. Or at least that's how it works on soap operas. I'd like to think this comedy will be different, but we're already getting some big hints that it won't be. Scott's comment about his and Mandy's dating history is a huge red flag here. Not only do these two have a history of cheating together, but Scott mentioning it suggests he's hoping that'll happen again. Or at least, that's how I read it. Plus, Georgie and Mandy's marriage is starting to have small problems that will eventually balloon into huge ones. Their money issues and inability to see eye to eye on most things could lead Mandy to make a choice she regrets one day when she's mad at Georgie. Plus, let's face it, they married for baby Cece's sake and didn't really know each other all that well, and there's always stress from their family and their living situation. All of that is a recipe for questioning whether they want to be together when they hit road bumps, though Georgie's overconfidence that he'd fix the problem by talking to Scott was hilarious. Connor's story was the mirror image of Georgie and Mandy's. For the most part, this story was typical sitcom fare about the parents arguing over who should talk to Connor about the pregnancy test. It was understandable that Audrey was concerned. She's already been through this with one kid, and doesn't want any other surprise grandchildren. Plus, she's always worried that Connor hasn't figured out adulting, so the idea of him having a kid of his own had to have been terrifying for her. When Connor finally told Jim the truth, it made me cry. I know what it feels like to not get social rules, feel like you've finally made it, and then the relationship ends, so I felt for Connor. Chloe's pregnancy scare was a wake-up call for her. She didn't want to have children with Connor, so she moved on. But for Connor, that was a rejection of the only relationship that had made him happy. And he probably is afraid that he will never have that again because he's too weird. Jim had the rare opportunity to be the father who comforts his son, and it was beautiful. Hopefully, Connor will move on soon, though next week's preview suggests he hasn't yet, but this was a strong scene for him.